welcome back to my channel, and happy official start of fall. I'm so excited about fall. Fall is my absolute favorite time of the year. I just love everything about it. So I thought it would be fun to share with you guys my fall reading list. I guess I can't technically call it a fall TBR because I've already started reading some of my books. But I did want to show you the other books that I plan to read between the months of September, October, and November, because I've picked out a lot. I'm probably being very optimistic in my reading goals. I'm going to get a sip of coffee out of my adorable Harry Potter mug. I'll leave the shop linked below that I got it from. I don't know if she has any right now, because I did get this last year, but I'll leave her shop link below anyways. So because I have 20, I'm not going to go in depth about each of the books. I'll kind of just give you a brief rundown of what they're all about. There's so many on the list, you guys. Okay, let's get into them. So the very first book I did finish was the story Liesl and Paul. That's by Lauren Oliver, and it is definitely a middle grade book. But you know, in the fall, I love to read you know, spooky books and psychological books, but I also like to read children's fiction that's kind of magical and whimsical. And so the story of Liesl is about a young girl named Liesl whose father marries a not very nice lady. That lady ends up locking Liesl in a tower. And while in the tower one day, Liesl is visited by a ghost named Poe, who kind of takes her on a little bit of an adventure. I really enjoyed it. It was a very cute book. I actually listened to the book. I listened to it with my younger two kids, and they both really enjoyed it as well. So we would definitely recommend it. I am currently reading, well, I guess reading and listening to two other books. So first up is Heartless by Marissa Meyer, and this is a retelling of the Queen of Hearts. It's from her perspective when she's younger, before she's actually the queen, and so far I'm really enjoying it. I do have the copy of the book, but I am listening to the audiobook of it, and I'm really enjoying doing it that way because the narrator gives all different kinds of voices, and I've really enjoyed listening to like the Cheshire Cat, and it's a really cool way to kind of look at the Queen of Hearts differently. She is probably one of my favorite villains, partly because Alice in Wonderland is one of my favorite stories. So it's very intriguing to kind of get a different perspective and view of her. So I'm reading that one, which I'm actually reading as part of book club, and I'm reading it with my sweet friend Amber Crawley here on YouTube, and also with my sweet friend Rachel, who is Bookworm Mama on Instagram. You guys should definitely check out her Instagram profile. She does all kinds of book related posts. So, and then right now, as you can see, I'm annotating, and I have all of the things marked down for this one. I'm reading The 10,000 Doors of January, but I am only a couple chapters in and I'm absolutely in love. So the story is about a young girl named January whose father works for Mr. Locke, collecting rare artifacts from all over the world. And while her father is off collecting these artifacts, January actually lives with Mr. Locke at his estate. And one January finds a strange book that tells a tale of secret doors, and she realizes that she can kind of escape her boring life and sneak into someone else's story. Definitely am loving this. I can't wait to finish it. And I was instantly drawn to the cover when I saw it, and my birthday is in January, and so all of those things combined yeah, just kind of pulled me right in. So it's not super spooky or mysterious, but it does kind of have this whimsical, magical feel to it, so it fits in with my kind of overall, I don't know, genre that I am drawn to in the fall. I plan to read Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is definitely a middle grade YA book. And the premise of this is that 10-year-old Morgan was born on the most unlucky day, which is called Evertide, and is therefore cursed to die on midnight of her 11th birthday. That is until one day a man named Jupiter North shows up and whisks her away to a secret world and a magical city named Nevermore. While in Nevermore, she has to complete 4 trials that are very dangerous in order to be a part of this society and stay in Nevermore. So I'm very excited about this one. This is another book I was instantly drawn to because of the cover. I am a huge sucker for a good cover, so this one hit home for me. I also plan to read The Memory House by Rachel Hauck. This one isn't necessarily spooky or even really magical, and kind of just has that cozy fall vibe to me. So it is basically about 2 women 50 years apart. One of them is a New York City cop whose father sadly died in 9/11, and she receives a letter in the mail one day letting her know that she has inherited a house in Florida. And so we're kind of swept back in time to the widow who used to live in that house, and the stories of their lives kind of intertwine throughout the book. So I'm very excited to read that. Next up, we have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. I am so excited to read this, and I actually picked this copy up at Pelican Bay Books when my husband and I were on our little trip. It is such a beautiful cover. It just looks whimsical and magical. And so the premise of this is that 17-year-old Alice and her mother are always on the road trying to stay one step ahead of their bad luck. But when Alice's grandmother, who is the author of very dark fairy tales, dies alone at her estate, the Hazelwood, Alice realizes that things are about ready to get much worse. A mysterious figure steals Alice's mother away, and he claims to be a cruel and very suspicious man from the world that her grandmother created in her stories. So she, always kind of avoided her grandmother's fans, but now looking for her mother, she kind of falls at the mercy of one of her grandmother's biggest fans, Ellery Finch, who tries to help her, but as it turns out, he may have his own reasons for wanting to help her. So, looks very good. If you read the back of the book, it says, thoroughly creepy, captivating, with surprises I never saw coming. This book will be your next obsession, destined to be a classic, absolutely mesmerizing, a dream of a book. I can't recommend it highly enough. Terrifying, magical, and surprisingly funny. I mean, could you ask for anything more from a fall book? I don't think so. I also hope to read For Whom the Sun Shines by W.A. Fulkerson. I don't really know a whole lot about this book. My friend Rachel read it, and she was kind of telling me about it, and it sounded very interesting. The premise is people who are the last people on the earth live kind of a secluded life in the mountains. Life is predictable and precise and very planned out. And everybody in the village is blind. Until one day, an 11-year-old boy can see. And the story is kind of about him and what he does to try to change things for himself and the other children in the village. So I don't know a lot about it. It does sound very good, and I'm very interested to read it. I also want to read The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. this book has so many things that have me intrigued. So the premise is that Mary Jack, with the help of Sherlock Holmes and Watson and a strange group of women that were created via experimental means, come together to search for a murderer, Edward Hyde. And while searching for him, they discover a secret society of immoral, power-crazed scientists. And yeah, it's kind of just up to her to solve this mystery, and try to find the truth of what really happened to her father. Yeah, so again, I don't know a ton about this book, but it proves to be very interesting, I think. I also plan to read this true story of the Radium Girls by Kate Moore. So this is the story of America's shining women. So it's about the women who worked in the radium factory World War, and they become mysteriously ill because of working with the radium dust, and they're called the Radium Girls or the Shining Girls because a lot of them actually do glow because of the dust that they paint on things, and a lot of them do fall ill, and so when they get sick, the factories cover it up, and the girls find themselves in one of the biggest scandals of the 20th century. So yeah, it's the dark story of America's shining women. So it sounds very interesting. It has, some pictures of the actual women in it. So I'm very intrigued to read this. Yeah. I also plan to read Bone Crier's Moon by Kathryn Purdie. I got this book as a Bookish box exclusive, so my cover looks different than the original. This is the original dust jacket. Again, I don't know much about this book, but the premise is that the Bone Criers have the ability to keep the dead from prying on the living. Part of the description of the book says that it is about a doomed romance and macabre magic and a betrayal of power that will shatter the boundary between the living and the dead. So yeah, I don't really know much about it. I do know that my friend Rachel read it almost instantly after getting it in the Bookish box and loved it. So, definitely sounds good. Next up is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. I have been in love with the cover of this book from the moment I saw it so many years ago. I believe it came out in 2016, and for the life of me, I honestly cannot tell you why I have not picked it up and read it yet, because it is beautiful. It is, again, another middle grade book, but yeah, I just can't even. So the premise is that every year a baby is left as an offering to a witch, because the people think that if they leave the baby as the offering, the witch will leave them alone and not terrorize their village. Unbeknownst to them, she's actually very kind and takes the children and gives them to loving families on the other side of the forest, until one year she accidentally feeds one of the baby moonlight, which fills the ordinary child with extraordinary magic. So the witch's name is Zan, and she lives with a swamp monster and a tiny dragon. And yeah, so I am so excited to read this book. The back of the book says, "There is magic in starlight." Of course, this is well known. Moonlight, however, that is a different story. Moonlight is magic. Ask anyone you like. So, and I just think this cover is absolutely gorgeous. So I'm very excited for this book. Next on the list is Set the Stars Alight by Amanda Dykes. This is another Rachel recommendation. It says, in an age-bricked cottage in London, the magic of the past comes alive every night for the family of a humble watchmaker. In her father's fireside stories, Lucy Claremont's fascination with the high seas begins, leading her to to devote her life's work to discovering the whereabouts of a legendary lost ship. But when tragedy strikes, it's childhood friend Dashiell and his knowledge of the stars that may help her solve the puzzle. Sounds so good. Again, not spooky or haunting, but kind of has that magical tie-in. So we also have Bellman in Black by Diane Setterfield, who is one of my absolute favorite authors. She wrote the book The 13th Tale, which I am obsessed with. It is one of the 5 books I couldn't put down. I cannot wait to read this. I know hardly anything about this book, if I'm being completely honest. I do know that, again, the back says magical, a spellbinding story. Absolutely fascinating. So the premise is basically that a young boy one day shoots his slingshot and kills a rook. You know, kind of a seemingly unimportant event in his life that he forgets about until years later. A mysterious stranger appears and his past kind of comes back to haunt him. And he and the mysterious stranger form a macabre business, Bellman in Black. So Diane is amazing at storytelling and kind of just keeping you on your toes. And so I'm sure that this story will do exactly that. I'm very, very excited to read it. I also have Stalking Jack the Ripper. This story is basically just about a woman who, believe it or not, was in love with Jack the Ripper. The back says, he murdered women in cold blood. He terrorized an entire city. He taunted those of us who haunted him down. But despite all of these horrors, in the end, I could not deny it. I was the girl who loved the Ripper. I mean, really? Yeah, so this is by Kerri Maniscalco. I do believe it is part of a series. And again, my friend Rachel says that I have to read it. So I plan to do just that. And look at that cover. So beautiful. I also have some audiobooks that I will be listening to. I'll go ahead and put the pictures of the covers right up here on the top. The first up is Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber. I listened to a preview of the first few chapters of this book, and I kid you not, to me, it is very much practical magic meets Heart of Dixie. It's, you know, kind of magical realism and whimsy set in Southern charm. So it's based in Wicklow, Alabama, and Anna Kate comes home to bury her grandmother Z, who was the owner of the Blackbird Cafe. It was supposed to be a simple, quick little trip to bury her grandmother, but she finds herself drawn to this town and the mysterious blackbird pie that everybody can't quit talking about. So I'm very excited to read that. And again, the cover is gorgeous. Next up is Jane Steele by Lindsay Fay, and it is a gothic retelling of Jane Eyre, where Jane kind of appears as though she might be a serial killer. I mean, come on. How much better could we possibly be? I also want to read The Haunting at the Bonaventure Circus by Jamie Jo Wright. I know nothing about this book, not a thing. I do know that my friend Rachel recommended it, and it's about a circus. So to me, circuses always kind of have that magical, slightly dark underbelly feeling to them. So I cannot wait to read it. Next up, by one of my very favorite authors, Hazel Gaynor, is The Cottingley Secret, which is a story based in 1917 where 2 cousins say that they photographed 2 fairies in their garden. Everyone kind of just doesn't really believe them until Sir Arthur Conan Doyle says that the photograph is authentic. And the girls, of course, become famous. But it appears as though they have a secret, and they keep that secret for decades until one day one of the girls really wants the secret to be known. And so yeah, I'm very intrigued by that story. And I love everything that Hazel Gaynor writes, so I'm sure it won't disappoint. Next on my list is The Little Shop of Found Things by Paula Braxton, who is the author of the Witch's Daughter series. I have to say, instantly drawn in by the cover of this book. There was just something about it that pulled me in. And when I read the synopsis on the back, I was like, okay, definitely need to read this. So the premise of this is that Xanthe and her mother, Flora, flee London in search of a new life. And they end up in America running an antique store. Well, Xanthe kind of possesses the ability to touch things and kind of see what their connection to the universe is. Well, one day while touching a certain object, she is transported back to the 17th century and has to do some things in order to save her mother. And so, yeah, I'm very excited. I really like Paula Braxton's books. And this one just is very intriguing to me. Last on my list is The Alienist by Caleb Carr, which is now actually a mini-series, I believe, or maybe it's just a full series on Netflix, maybe Hulu, I'm not sure. It is kind of a story about the early beginnings in 1896 of criminology and psychological profiling. And so the story kind of takes place where a psychological profiler is called to the scene of a pretty gruesome crime scene, and him and a detective kind of profile the serial killer. Yeah, and so it sounds very dark and very perfect for this time of the year. So those are the 20 books on my list. Please let me know in the comments below if you have read any of these or if you plan to read any of them. If you have read them, let me know if you enjoyed them, or if you're intrigued by them, let me know which one sounds the most interesting to you. I have also gone ahead and made this cute little junk journal to keep track of all of my fall books that I'm reading. My junk journaling was inspired by my friend Amber. And I will actually do a whole like flip through of this in a video coming up soon. But the way I'm going about picking my books is that I have actually made this little pocket here, and I've printed off all of the book covers, and I just take them out and put them into a bowl and pull one. So it's a total random draw of which one I'll be reading next. And then I'm just kind of keeping track of them here. So because I did already read Liesl and Paul, I stuck it in here. And I have this little cute flip up pocket where I will write down my favorite quote from the book. And then the book itself is on this cute little cover of the book is on this cute little thing. And in here I will write my star rating for the book, the dates in which I read it. And then I plan to kind of rate all 20 books. So which of the books, you know, was my favorite, you know, as I go along. So I have that one in there. And then if you flip, I have also added Heartless because I am currently reading that one. And I have also, in this cute little envelope, added the 10,000 Doors of January because I'm reading that one as well. So, and I have little pockets for all 20 as I go along. So, like I said, I will show this more in detail on an upcoming junk journaling video I'm planning. And then at the end of each month, I will kind of discuss more in depth the books I read each month and my review on them. So stay tuned for the end of September to listen to my review on the other books that I read. So I already told you kind of how I felt about Liesl and Paul, but stay tuned to hear my final thoughts on Heartless and the 10,000 Doors of January, and then possibly one other book. My hope is to get at least one more done in September. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I know it was very long and chatty, but I hoped you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon. Bye.